Okay, by the time you come to this section, you already learned how to do the basic expansion, the arrow method. Okay, so that was what you have learned. And you should be very, very comfortable with the arrow method already. And I'm gonna introduce you the algebraic identities. So the or sometimes we call it special identities, or we call it algebraic identities. It doesn't matter. So there are three identities here. You can treat these three identities like formula. So these are the formulas for expansion. So for formulas for expansion, you okay, the first two formula. Okay, so this one is the first formula, this is the second formula. So the first two formulas are meant for perfect squares. So what do we mean by perfect squares? So if you take a look, number one, it is for a plus b squared. So anything that has a square is known as a perfect square. So this is called a minus b squared. So the difference will be the plus minus. So the difference will be the plus minus. And when you expand out, right, so the formula will be like this. So if this is a plus, it will be a plus totally. If this is a subtraction, okay, it will be a minus and a plus. So this will be called a perfect square. So later on, I will show you a numerical example. So this numerical example will also match with whatever arrow method that you have learned. Okay, then the third formula will be for the difference of two squares. So the third formula is usually the hardest. A lot of students wouldn't be able to apply this formula, wouldn't be able to maybe even identify this formula. So this difference of two squares, okay, if you do not want to think so much, right, can you look at the bracket? The bracket are almost identical, except that there's a plus and a minus difference. So you got both identical A, you got identical B. So the only difference between the two brackets is the plus minus. So the A must be identical, the B must be identical. And here comes this formula. So I will be showing you using a numerical example. Okay, so first of all, before I show you how we're going to be using these three formulas, okay, there are important notes for you to take note of. The important note will be this part. So this part will be the common mistake that a lot of people will make, and they can make it 100 times and they are still making this. So a lot of people, right, they will take it as when you're squaring something, right, they kind of make it into a square and b square. So for example, something like x plus 2. So a lot of people will just be doing, oh, I know it's going to be like this. So a lot of people will do this, and this is totally wrong. So why would it be totally wrong? Because if let's say I'm going to be doing this x plus 2 squared. So what is the meaning of x plus 2 squared? It actually meant that the bracket will repeat. The bracket will repeat, and you can apply your arrow method. Take the first guy and multiply. Then you take the second guy and you multiply. So in actual fact, right, if you do the normal arrow method, it should have given you this. So can you compare the difference here? So a lot of people will make this common mistake. It will be the same thing for this one. So a lot of people may be like, when they do something like x minus 4, okay, they will be doing things like this. So this one is totally wrong. Okay, don't make this mistake like a lot of time and you're still not realizing the mistake. So why is this totally wrong? Because when there is a bracket, no, when there is a square, it means that it is repeated 2 times. That means the bracket is repeated twice, and if you have done your arrow method, take the first guy, multiply, take the second guy and you multiply. You will end with this. So please take note. This is totally wrong. This is the correct one. Okay, make sure you do not make this common mistake. Okay, I will be using example 1 to show you the 3 formulas. So to facilitate you for this idea, I'm going to be writing the formulas here. So I'll be writing formula 1. If you are thinking, do you need to memorize the formula? Yes. Okay, why are we using this formula? So this formula actually cuts short your arrow method. So this formula actually cuts short your arrow method. So if you look at the first one, the first expansion, if you look at the first expansion, okay, I can do it by the, okay, so, okay, maybe I will do it here. So if I use the arrow method for the first question 1A, how will the arrow method look like? So by now, you should be very comfortable with the arrow method. So the square means you are repeating the bracket. Take the first guy, multiply, multiply. So you get 9r squared. You get 15rs. Take the second guy, multiply to the second bracket. So eventually you get a 9r squared plus 30rs plus 25s squared. So if I do by the arrow method, I will have gotten this answer. But I can be using the formula. So this is the formula. So I'm using formula number 1. So when I use formula number 1, my A is 3R. Do you realize I bracket my A? A lot of students will not put bracket. When they don't put bracket, they will start to make mistake. So when I do it this way, okay, I go according to the formula. The formula is a squared. And there's the 2AB. So all the A, you change it to 3R. B, you change it to 5S. So I'm applying the formula. So after you apply the formula, now you're supposed to do it. So 3R squared. So it should be 3R times 3R. So that's where I get a 9R squared. Then you multiply all the number, 2 times 3 times 5, you get a 30. So 5S squared. So that will be 5S and a 5S. So I will get a 25s squared. So that's my final answer. So if you take a look, right, the two final answer will match. So if you're thinking, since the two method will give me the same answer, if I prefer the arrow method, can I stick to the arrow method? Uh, if you really find the formula very difficult, yeah, then you can stick to the arrow method. But it will not be useful for you, particularly if you are going to aim to take double math in upper sec. So this is a basic thing that you must be able to do at your fingertips. So I'm going to even tell you that this working is actually optional. So this working, right, is actually optional. If let's say you are very good with the formula, in your head, you can directly give the answer. And when you directly give the answer, will you get penalized? No, you will not get penalized. Okay, so it will be, I will suggest, right, you be very, very good with this formula. But the answer from the formula and the answer from the arrow method, it will match. Okay, so the formula is only applicable when in this case, perfect square and difference of two squares. Okay, so I'm going to erase this part. Okay, I'm going to use part B to show you formula number 2. So again, I'm going to show you formula number 2 with two methods. Okay, so make sure you copy down first before I erase off everything. Okay, so if I go to part B, there is a subtraction in the bracket. So part B, there is a subtraction in the bracket. So I should be using the second formula. So let's try the arrow method. So let's try the arrow method. So when the whole bracket has a power 2, that means, right, the whole bracket is repeated. When the whole bracket has a power 2, okay, you duplicate the bracket. And then you go for the arrow method. The first guy, multiply to the bracket. The second guy, multiply to the bracket. And then you simplify it. So like I say, by now you should be very comfortable with the arrow method and you shouldn't have careless mistake. If you are still full of careless mistake, you just have to up your awareness, or else you'll find that your algebra will turn out very badly with so much careless mistake. Okay, then if let's say I'm going to be using the formula, I should be using the second formula, because the second formula is the one with the subtraction. So this will be my A, this will be my B. So bracket up your A and bracket up your B. So remember to bracket up and you put into the formula. So the A will be a 7P with a bracket. Okay, let me emphasize the bracket. And 2AB. And a B squared. Then you're going to work it out. Then you're going to work out this with a square. Okay, mentally, a lot of people will make mistake. So this should be a 49 P squared. Those who never put bracket, they put like this. Okay, then they will give the answer as 7P squared. So if they forgot the bracket, then most probably they're going to give 7 t squared. So please try to avoid all these kind of mistake. These are the common mistake. Okay, then 2, 7, 3. So 42 PQ. And now we got a 3Q square. So 3Q square, 3Q times 3Q. So I will get a 9Q square. So this is my answer. So again, if you check, the two answers will match. So if you are very good with the formula, you can come straight away. But if you decide to apply the formula in your head and you always end up with careless, then I suggest you better write out the working. But I will strongly suggest if you can mentor this, go ahead and mentor. But if you would like to mentor this, you must mentor with no careless mistake. Okay, 0 careless mistake totally. Okay, so okay, I'm going to erase this. This one is formula number 2. Okay, I'm going to erase this. I'm going to go to part C and part D. Part C and part D is an illustration of formula number 3. But it can also be done by the arrow method, which I'm still showing you. So I'm going to erase. Make sure you copy everything necessary first. So for part C, you must realize that the two brackets are identical. Almost identical except for the plus minus. So they are almost identical except for the plus minus. So let's try the arrow method. So I'm going to try the arrow method. So take the first guy, multiply, multiply. Take the second guy, multiply, multiply. And you will realize that this part will be a 0. Do you realize this part cancel away? So eventually you're left with this. So I'm going to show you how am I going to use this formula. So recognize that your A first. You need to ensure that your A are identical. Need to ensure that your B are identical. So you need to make sure your A and B are exactly identical. The only difference is the plus minus. And if you apply the formula directly, A squared minus B squared. The formula is just A squared minus B squared. So that is just a 4m squared and a 25n squared. So again, the meaning of bracket 2m with a square means 2m times 2m. That's how we get the 4m squared. So if you do it without the bracket, most probably your answer will be wrong. So people who do it without the bracket, they will get 2m squared instead of 4m squared. Okay, I have been reminding about the bracket. Hopefully, none of you make the bracket mistake. So the same thing happened for 5n, means 5n times 5n. So that's how we get the 25n squared. So if you take a look, we end up with the same answer. I would say the formula is more direct. So even though you would achieve the same answer, I would suggest you be very, very good with this formula. So this formula will be twisted in application question. And when the formula is being twisted, it will get difficult. So be very, very good with the formula. Aim for 100% execution for the formula. So for the last one, it is also, I'm going to erase off part C. So make sure you got everything that you need first. So I'm going to go to part D. Okay, part D will still be formula number 3. The difference is plus and minus, and the A is exactly identical. Look at the A. So this time around, the A is a bit more complex. And look at the B. Okay, so for this one, I'm not going to show you the arrow method. I'm just going to go direct to the formula. So you realize the A and B are identical. The only difference is the plus minus. So I'm going to apply the formula direct. So it will be a square. So your whole A will be squared. So your A and B should already be in bracket. So this is the trick here. So if you're doing this with a square, what does that mean? It means that this whole thing is repeated. And what do you get when this whole thing is repeated? 2 times 2, y square and y square. So what do you think you get from y square and y square? You get a y power 4. So this part, you get a y power 4. 1 square, nothing fanciful, it's just a 1 times 1. So this is how we apply the formula. So if I choose to apply the formula, the answer that I achieve will be the same as if we do the arrow method. It has to be the same. There cannot be any difference. So if there's any difference, that means you make some mistake in one of the methods. Okay, so this is the use of the formula in the expansion for perfect squares and difference of 2 squares.